If you really want to eliminate crime, start by abolishing the police. This post was written by Will Grigg and originally published at the Libertarian Institute under the title "Want Crime to Go Down? Abolish the Local Police." Posts and other content you think are worth sharing with the COPBLOCK network can be sent in to us via the COPBLOCK.org submissions page. Some tips to make it more likely that your submission will get posted to the COPBLOCK network can be found here. Note: this has been posted in its original form and no edits to the original text were made. Some links may have been added within the text and images have been added. In addition, the conclusions expressed within this initial introductory summary represent my own interpretation of what is being stated within Grigg's writings. In the post below, Will Grigg discusses the unnecessary, redundant and wasteful local police departments in tiny towns throughout the country. Examples such as the recent resignation of the entire police force in Bunker Hill, Indiana show that these departments serve no real purpose in relation to protecting those communities from the very few real crimes committed there. And as the ill-fated police strike that the NYPD engaged in when people failed to bow and scrape properly to their local heroes showed, it's not just limited to small, rural communities, either. In fact, Louisiana's Evangeline Parish, whose sheriff successfully petitioned to limit their police force's service to revenue generation, illustrates what the real intentions and historical origins of the police are. Want crime to go down? Abolish the local police. Bunker Hill, Indiana, is a village of 900 people. It has not been consumed by the maelstrom of criminal violence that, we are told, would descend on any community even briefly deprived of the divine protection offered by our police department. The village obviously didn't need the department it had until December 12, when the town marshal and his 4 reserve deputies walked off the job to protest decisions by the town board. We have had issues with the town board, and there are some activities there where I felt like they were serving their own agenda, former Marshal Michael Thomason explained. Most of his complaints had to do with proposed budget cutbacks, and a refusal on the part of the council to purchase body armor for all 5 members of the department. "I did not want to send someone out there with bad body armor," grouses Thomason. "I told them we have to provide this. They were just not receptive to having a police department. It's just no fun to play dress up and swagger around the village unless the kids get the full costume and all of the accessories." The historical resonance of the village's name notwithstanding, Thomason and his buddies were not under siege by heavily armed adversaries, nor was there any realistic expectation that they ever would be. Crime is practically non-existent in Bunker Hill. The most recent report lists 1 violent and 10 property crimes. And the village is 15 minutes away from the Miami County Sheriff's Office in the county seat of Peru. A deranged cartographer was apparently responsible for assigning city and county names. It's therefore reasonable to consider the police department as an unnecessary expense, and a potential source of avoidable trouble. That latter consideration, ironically, was underscored by the disgruntled officers themselves, who have accused town councilors of asking them to conduct unlawful background checks on each other. The municipal officials stoutly deny ever making such requests. What is the purpose of inflicting a police department on a minuscule settlement where crimes against persons and property are practically unknown? The obvious answer is that while such towns might be welcome havens from private criminal violence, there can be no sanctuary from revenue collection. And this is the core function of government law enforcement agencies, as Sheriff Eddie Soilo of Louisiana's Evangeline Parish has recently reminded us. Soilo's office is dealing with budget cuts, layoffs, and a Justice Department civil rights investigation, and is thus determined to pare operations down to the basics. To that end, he asked for, and received, an advisory opinion from the state's Attorney General regarding the following question: can he legally operate without having law enforcement duties, and simply carrying out the role of a tax collector? The Louisiana State Constitution, replied the Attorney General's office, specifies that he is to be the collector of state and parish ad valorem taxes and such other taxes and license fees as provided by law. Where law enforcement is concerned, the sheriff's duties are a matter of discretion. He is required to keep the peace and make arrests, but is not required to appoint a specific number of deputies to carry out that function. Should a sheriff choose not to appoint deputies to assist in his law enforcement role, we could cite no statute that would forbid such a choice, concluded the AG's opinion. Odd as this might seem to people who were suckled on resilient myths about sheriffs and police officers as valiant defenders of the public and protectors of private property, Sheriff Soilo's arrangement actually restores his office to its primordial purpose. Following the Norman conquest of England, the existing kinship-based system for defense of property and settlement of disputes was supplanted by a feudal order enforced through royal appointees called shire reeves or shire riffs, antecedents of the modern sheriff. Their duty was to maintain the king's peace by collecting taxes and preventing private efforts at restitution for injuries. It was impermissible for subjects to settle disputes among themselves, since this would deprive the royal treasury of the fees imposed through the embryonic state's justice system. This is the disreputable origin of the venerable office of the local sheriff, the only lawman whose occupation is even remotely compatible with the American constitutional tradition. A spare handful of contemporary sheriffs, at most, see their role as protecting property rights, rather than serving the privileged elite that preys on the public, and they can expect to be harassed and driven from office. Everything the state says is a lie, everything it claims to own it has stolen, and every act undertaken to enforce the state's edicts is a crime. The disappearance of a law enforcement agency enhances the personal security of those residing in any community where such a blessed development occurs.